Welcome to the Rockpile Podcast today, where I bring you episode number 3 of the Coaches Show. Excited to talk to Colgate head football coach Stan Dakosty. We'll go back in time. We'll talk a little bit about their first win of the season against Cornell. We'll talk Penn. We'll talk their most recent game in the Patriot League opener against Holy Cross. We'll go around the Patriot League and much more today with Coach. So stay tuned. The Coaches Show up next here on the Rockpile. The Coaches Show today is sponsored by the MedSpot, Aesthetics, Wellness, and Weight Loss on 110 West Thomas Street in Rome. Special thanks to Corey Corbin. Waterman's Martial Arts, providing karate, sword, and self-defense to our Hamilton and Sherrill communities. Check them out at WMACNY.com. Special thanks to Sensei Waterman and Sensei Conway. So without further ado, we'll bring on Coach. Let's get him on now. Hey, Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Not too bad, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time this week on an off week for you guys.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
So, Coach, let's go back in time. I want to talk briefly about you guys got a few weeks back, first win of the season, Cornell. And I remember when the preseason started, we talked about a few things: is Colgate being able to run the football and Colgate being able to stop the run. And in that game, you guys rushed for over 270 yards, and I think you held Cornell to under 100 yards rushing. So talk a little bit about that game if you can.
Yeah, that was a great day. It was a great homecoming afternoon at Colgate, and I think that was obviously highlighted offensively by being able to consistently run the football early on, and then increase the yardage in the third and fourth quarters, where we always say a 3 or 4 yard game in the first should turn into those 7, 8, 9 yard games in the fourth quarter if we're leaning on the team. So that showed up, and I think when you see the guys with multiple carries and getting in rhythms with the ball in their hand and stuff like that, that part was huge. So line showed up that day, and then defensively, we were just like anything else. I mean, Cornell had the same defensive staff, so we had a general idea what they were going to do defensively. New head coach, new offensive staff, so they came out and I think they threw the ball in the first 20 plays or something like that. It was or 19 out of 20 plays. So the defensive staff made a good adjustment and basically put a defense in that was say, okay, we're going to do this against a pass. Now run the ball on us. And, so we were able to, kind of live in both worlds there of playing, more pass-friendly defense, but also still be aggressive versus the run. So because they, their quarterback, he's had a great career for him. He puts the ball in some tough spots from a coverage standpoint. So once those adjustments were made and we had a good, really last 3 quarters of that game.
Coach, how nice is it when you can run the ball and spread the ball out? You mentioned you spreaded the ball out with carries. I think Chris had 15 carries. Michael had 11 carries. I think Marco had 10 carries, all relatively around the same yardage. But talk to us how important it is when you can spread the ball like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a balance because you want the running backs to get into a good rhythm, right? And but also, when you have guys that are talented guys that could be fresh as well, getting them into the mix is huge. So, Coach Livingston does a good job of with his preparation with the running backs and his rotation and having a good idea what the feel is for the game for those guys. And if there's a hot hand, that room is tight and they support each other. And if carries go up for one and maybe not the other, but we're running, it's going to be all good, but if we're able to balance it out and get all into a rhythm, I think that's huge too.
Coach, you guys stayed in the Ivy League the following week with Penn. And Penn, before we get into some of the highlights of the Penn game, talk to us about Trayvon Saunders that game, 16 receptions. I think it was he broke the school record. If I remember, I think it was Corey Hill in 99. I remember that because I played against Corey, who was an absolute stud at Colgate. But talk to us about how special he is for you guys.
Yeah, I got Corey Hill before me, but absolute he's a legend here. And so Trey to get, into some, numeric, proximity to him with a lot of what his numbers were over his career is a pretty cool thing for Trey. But no, I think Trey, the way the game is and the way, some of the offenses are set up, it's the, that spread version of how people the RPOs and different pass game stuff. I think he's built to have a lot of success, and that's an all credit to him because he's built his body up, he's built his skill set up. Because coming out of high school, he was more of a utility guy on offense, played some cornerback, and we took him as one of our receiver spots, but it was still an unknown until he got here of like what was his natural receiving potential. And right from the start, he made an impact, and a lot of it was how he approached the game, how serious he takes it, and how serious he takes his craft, and then he then he's durable. And I think that's the one thing where his toughness, because the numbers are what they are, I think his toughness gets overlooked because a lot of his passes are over the middle, are going towards the linebackers and the safeties, and he gets his extra yards, he takes the hits, and he delivers some hits. So I think he's a tough kid, obviously talented, and I was actually on the sideline for both of the records of it was Lehigh my freshman year. Their guy Snyder, I watched him get 16 catches against us. So when I saw the note, it kind of took me back to that game way back. But no, it's obviously like we have enough tradition here where you're going to want the numbers that matter are the wins and the championships. But when you get a situation like that for a guy that works as hard as he does, he definitely, acknowledge that. But he'll tell you after the game, and we met after the game, his first comments were a couple of the plays that he needed to make. And, so that's where his mindset is. So that's something he could look back on and, put on his resume when it's all said and done. But he's worried about us winning as his number one right now.
Coach, you guys fell behind early in that Penn game, 14-0. And I went back and I watched some of the clips of it. It looked like the second touchdown might have been a busted coverage on the back end, but you guys had a huge call on 4th and 1 when Zach Osborne ran it in for a touchdown on 4th and 1. Got you guys back in the game and got you guys some momentum going after that.
Yeah, I think, you spot a team like that, 14 points, the afternoon could go in a lot of different directions. And, we still as a team, we kept in it and we weren't going away, but it wasn't really until I think there was about 10 minutes to go in the game. We got it to 24-17 and then we couldn't close out from that standpoint. We couldn't make that stop and to get the ball back with that 7-point lead and could have made some plays towards the end to keep it closer inside that 10 minutes. So, I think it's you walk away with the obviously disappointment in the loss and the things you want to learn from it and take it and build off of that stuff, and you could pull things from it. But I think the actuality of, again, Penn's always a strong program, and so we knew they were going to be well coached and a good team, and they battle everybody that they play, so we knew it was going to be a physical game. Our kids battled back to the point of we had our shot to win it in the fourth quarter. And now I think next step from our end is obviously, finishing out those games and because we feel like we got the guys to do it and we're capable. It's a matter of myself and the coaches, getting them over the hump to make it happen.
Coach, I think your quarterback was it a second start that game against Penn for you guys?
Yeah. He started against Cornell and then, Penn would be a second.
So he had a big day. He had 31 completions for you guys, which I know if you ask any coach, if you have to throw it 47 times, I believe it was, you want to be a little bit more balanced. But he had a pretty good day for you guys, completing 31 balls. Yeah,
I think they're the way they're set up and the way we're set up. I mean, Jake, I think he took what the defense was giving him in a lot of aspects, which shows a sense of maturity. For a younger quarterback, which is good, but you're right. For him and the overall number of throws, he had that game where the last 2 weeks, like the balancing of what we have in a run game, and have that make an impact week in and week out. I think that's obviously the goal of our program for sure.
So, Coach, we opened up the Patriot League play last week across the Patriot League, and you guys get Holy Cross, which Holy Cross lost some key players but still brought a lot of key players off that team from a year ago. And a new coach comes in for Coach Chesney, who left for James Madison, and turnovers seem to be the big name of the story for that game with 4 turnovers for you guys. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's something where, watching film of Holy Cross, there's definitely names that you heard over the last 3 or 4 years that were constants that weren't there, but they had a good mix of guys that they still had some guys back that played in those championship teams, but also some upperclassmen that were developed and waited their turn and were ready to capitalize, and like their quarterback did a great job, and then defensively, they had some younger guys running around out there that Watching the film coming into it, even talking to their coaches before the game, there's always going to be growing pains when you play some younger guys, but the talent was there. So we knew obviously it was going to be a challenge, but from our end, from a program standpoint, when you go into a Patriot League game, obviously we go in with the mindset we're going to win it, or it's going to be a hard fought battle. And I think when you look at the final score, you can walk off that field seeing that game got away from us, and that's not acceptable on our end. So I think you can look at there's turnovers from our end of the mistakes we made, but also we didn't create any. And I think they capitalized on our mistakes. There was moments to make some plays and get momentum back, take momentum back, and we had an opportunity at the end of the half, with a kickoff return and stuff like that gives the game a different feel and our players a different mindset. But I think the one thing taken from this game is the mistakes we made, they capitalize off of. And I told the team yesterday, like if there are mistakes and the score was what it was, that means there are mistakes and they also played better than us. So it's like, did we shoot ourselves in the foot? Yeah, but then they also played better than us, or else the score wouldn't have been what it was. So are we better than what we showed? Absolutely. And it's definitely a challenge. I could say that all we want, but we got to go out and do it. And I think that's something we got to get the guys going.
And your junior wide receiver, Brady Hutchison, had a nice day for you guys too, with 103 yards. He's had a receiving touchdown, I believe, in the last 3 games for you guys. And to go along with Trey, that's a good 1-2 punch for you guys. Talk to us a little bit about him.
Yeah, Hutch is really good. I mean, he played early on in his career. He got on the field as a freshman. Just really serious about the game, about his craft, and a lot of his growth over the course of his time has come with just like normal general understanding of the offense, or expectations for him. But he's always loved the game and played hard. But his being more intentional about the little things from a practice habit standpoint that the great ones do to get them going from good to great. And the guys always going to run routes hard, and guys are going to do the certain wide receiver drills and techniques hard. And I think he's always done that. And then on top of that, he's done the little things with the blocking stuff and leverage and different things like that. That's going to show the constant effort. And so he's always been a hard worker, but he just didn't settle on that. So I think he's a hard worker now that understands the big picture of what it means to be a complete receiver. And but he's a keep his head down and work hard guy. And so he's just he loves the game. So a guy like that's good to see have that success. But again, I know he's the touchdowns are good, but his mind's set on winning, and that's what we got to do.
Coach, and on the defensive side of the ball for you, I think you guys have one of the best linebackers in the Patriot League, and Kozlowski, who had a big day for you against Holy Cross with 12 tackles. Talk to us just a little bit about him, how special he is to your team. And again, I think he's one of the best in the Patriot League.
Yeah, Kaz, and I told him, I was going to call him Cole until he had over 10 tackles again, and but he had over 10 tackles, but that still doesn't feel right. So I'm going to call him Cole. But he's the way I describe him as a linebacker is he's a kid that played a lot of different positions in high school. He played running back, receiver, quarterback, safety, kind of played all over the field. So Coach Eisen does a great job of, in his room, he's asking guys that play linebacker since Pop Warner and guys that came to Colgate and just started playing linebacker. So that development that Coach Eisen does is really good, and Kaz is a great example of that. So his growth and his maturation, a lot of it is goes within the details of he's got a playmaker mindset, which is great. It's what you want. And he's getting better at getting to, doing the little things of being where he's supposed to be and understanding the assignment and understand that, his guys around him are going to make the plays too. And, so I think he's a good, he's a good example of development there. And, but he's got, like I said, he's got a mindset of a playmaker, and, he wants to have an impact on the game. So, when he gets himself in the right positions, he has the ability to make those big plays and have a big impact.
Coach, you guys get a bye week this week, and before I ask you what's a bye week look like for the team this week, sometimes you ask a coach, what does the bye week come at the right time, the wrong time, early in the season, late in the season, maybe when guys are banged up? For you guys being this week, is it the right time for you guys to get some guys healthy?
Yeah, I think it's that's a good question, because there's two ways to look at it. Like, we win this game, or say we beat Holy Cross. We would physically treat the bye week kind of the same of getting our guys healthy and having them catch their breath halfway through the season. While also focusing on the fundamentals, because you don't got to jump right into scheming and game planning. But you have obviously the positive momentum of starting off league play. Right. You lose the Holy Cross, like, we're going to continue. We got to do all that stuff, but also now you got an added level of chip on shoulder, some adjustments that need to be made and things that need to be fixed. And when you're not playing up to the standard of the program, and you have a lot more time to think as opposed to just react and go to the next game. That part is, it challenges the mental toughness of the guys and the coaches. So from that standpoint, generally speaking, it's good because it's a sense of, like, we'll practice a couple days. Coaches will go on the road recruiting a couple days. I knew going into the season, it's a 12-game season. So, when guys get up here over the summer between June and July, we have a lot of guys that live nationally. So there's not a lot of guys that go back and forth. So that's, the first 6 weeks of the season, when you add in the whole summer, that's a pretty long stretch of time that this is a good kind of, reset, recalibrate. And, they'll have a couple of days of just being a student as opposed to a student athlete. And kind of from that standpoint, hit the reset button physically. And then mentally, it's it's the challenge of, being mentally tough through this tough stretch of how we started off league play and where we think we should be to where we are, and having them have that couple days to reflect on that and come back with the right mind when we start practice up again next week.
Yeah, I used to break it down in 3 parts. I used to break it down. You have the non-conference schedule, which was the first part of the season. Then you get the Patriot League play, which was a whole new season. Everybody's 0-0. And then after the bye week, it's like, let's reset things. Let's regroup. Let's get this thing back together. And like you said, Coach, the Patriot League season just kicked off. It's still right there in front of you guys, the chase of Patriot League title.
Yeah, I think I know we had a couple of Patriot League games last week, and a lot of guys had buys and stuff like that. But, once you get into October, especially early on, it's a tough league to win with one loss, obviously. Like, we got, there's trophies out in our lobby that have 5-1 records on it, and in a lot of lobbies across the Patriot League with different programs. So that part's there. It happens, but you're coming from behind. You got to count on someone else losing and whatnot, which is, so you don't necessarily hold all the, your destiny in your own hands from that standpoint. But at the same time, it's, I think the league as a whole, when you go in October, November, it's going to be wide open in a sense of what teams are heading in a good direction, what teams are plateauing, what teams are battling injuries. Like, there's so many factors that go into it. And the only thing we can control is, like, we need to be a team that keeps getting better. And, I think the league, the championship, all that kind of stuff is everyone has those goals. But if you're, bypassing what you have to do today at practice and thinking about that, then that stuff's never going to happen. So that's why I think it's the balance of understand there should be that, that excitement of, okay, there's the hunt. I get it. There's a hunt, and a lot of people right now, every team really is still in the mix after the first weekend of league play. So I think the next couple of weekends and through November, obviously, will shake out to see who becomes a front runner. And then the more meaningful games you have later in the year, that's why you play. And that's what the goals are.
And Coach, you guys get back from the break, you guys will prep for Georgetown. I think Georgetown's much better than what they've been in the past. They're 3-2, but I don't know schedule-wise if they've played the gauntlet that you've played and Holy Cross has played and some of the other teams. But what do you know about Georgetown this year? They're going to be tested this week. I think they're at Lafayette this weekend, so they'll be tested for sure. But what do you know so far in the early going with them?
I know that our games with them are always a battle. Coach Scott does a great job down there. He's been there a while. He's a Georgetown guy. There's consistency on their staff. So, so through recruiting and scheme, you see good development within their players. And you look at their scores versus teams in our league over the course of time. And there's wins in there. And if there are losses in there, then, they're battles. And so they that's why I think you mentioned about up to this point, records and everything where, the next couple of weeks is where you kind of see, where people stand, whether they're, the 4-1 or 1-5 or 3-2 or 2-3, like, as it starts to kind of pan out, because you don't know how good the other teams are that they played early on either. and you can kind of go to 6 degrees of separation on they beat this team, but that team then lost to two other teams, or vice versa. So it's like that part is, whether teams win early on or not, like when we get ready to play them, those games are relevant. It's all about us. And so that part's there just as from a coaches, and there's a lot of coaches in this league that have been in the league for a while. So there's that common, you check the scoreboard, the coaches, the players in a lot of ways, and you just kind of gauge where people are, how good their seasons are going. And then, but regardless, when you get to that game week, they're going to look like the Green Bay Packers and the best team you play all year. So that part's just, it's good to, just kind of have a pulse of the league, but it all shakes out when you play people on Saturdays.
Coach, I know you mentioned some of the leagues, and I was going through and looking at some of the early records. And again, you throw the records out once you start Patriot League play. And, I see my alma mater struggling big time at Fordham. I got to see what's going on down there in the Bronx. But have there been any surprises for you so far in the early going with the Patriot League? Has any team or team surprised you?
Honestly, like we haven't crossed over film wise besides Holy Cross. So, my look at the scoreboards is one thing. There's just information and data and see, where people are at. You could look at the stats, but, you look at the film and then you kind of get an idea of, okay, how people are. Because you could have looked at our Holy Cross and looked at their record. They're 1-4, but as soon as you put on the tape, like, okay, they're good. And they're a good football team. So from that standpoint, I think a decent amount of us this year, the out of conference, when you go out of conference, it's, people will play, like Holy Cross played Syracuse, and, multiple people played Max and stuff like that. A lot of times it's, okay, you play the CAA schools. How is that CAA team this year? And there's years that they could be top 10, there's years that they're not in the top 25. They're still going to be good, but like, how are they, are they a playoff team or not? Either way, they're going to be hard. It's going to be a hard game. And then when you get up against the Ivies, it's, what cycle of a Dartmouth team are you playing? What cycle of a Princeton team are you playing? Or Harvard, because those teams, traditionally have shown in the Penns of the world, they could be in the top 25. So a lot of that is, shakes out about, I don't know how good those other teams are either, So I think when you look at it, we've had, plenty of times over the last, 25, 30 years in this league where there's been 10-2 teams, 11-1. We've had our 12-0 seasons and 9-1 and stuff like that. But there's also been champions that were, the overall record was the 8-4, 7-5s, even 6-6s of the world where they got it done in league play. So that's kind of the the tough balance here of what our league is as a whole. And I think it's our league's as good as it has been in a long time. When you look at all of the teams collectively, and which I think which is great. Obviously, it makes it harder to to go out and take the title. But I think when you look at the out of conference, it's the wins and losses. But you look at the scores and see there's a lot of teams that compete at a national level.
And Coach, I've said for years too, I think some years going into the season, you could say that the Patriot League could be a 2-team bid into the the playoffs. And I've talked to Coach Langle numerous times as, do you coach any different that you have to win the Patriot League to get in? What's it like for you knowing that, to get into the playoffs every year for the most part, right, Coach, the Patriot League, you have to win the league to get in. But there have been some years where two have gotten in, and a year where maybe one's gotten in for sure, and then there's somebody who I think deserved in, but some will say, well, because of the Patriot League, it's not as strong as conference as maybe some of the others. Talk to us about that, of having to win that league, and is there any extra pressure to win to get in?
Yeah, I think, actually I've talked to Coach Langle about the more so just me being curious of, you look at basketball, they got the regular season, then they got their Patriot League tournament.
Yep.
But it's, if you don't win the regular season, you can go and win the tournament, or if you win the regular season, then you better not lose the tournament, right? Because you showed you could be the best team, and so but anything could happen in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's like, there's pros and cons, and we've always just for us, it's a 6-team tournament, and depending maybe when you get people scheduled to how good they are that year, it's not necessarily the final weekend is going to be the two best teams playing. You may play the next best team in week 7 or 8 or whatever. So that always makes it interesting. But at the same time, I think most of the coaches in this league will say, like, yeah, like to get to the playoffs, we got to win. The at-large, I think our league, like I said, is heading in a great direction, especially when you're bringing Richmond. That gives us more, obviously, strength of not top to bottom, it's overall as a league. And, so if you're able to put together those, seasons that maybe, there's an undefeated team in the league, you finish 5-1, but your record on top of that 5-1 is close to the 9 wins or whatever it is, then yeah, there should be definitely I think we're at least capable of putting those teams out there and going against anyone in the country.
Coach, when you look at the landscape of college football in general, I know we talked preseason, the NIL in the Patriot League I don't want to say it's non-existent, but kids are coming for an education to play in a really good conference. But when you look at the NIL in general, when you look over this past weekend, you see, Vanderbilt beats Alabama, and you see a lot of upsets across college football. Has the NIL really, has it changed, obviously, where you can build a team in college football now with that, the teams that have the money, and unfortunately, the lower market teams that don't benefit from that. But your opinion after watching, I'm not sure if you got a chance to watch some college football last weekend, but you probably saw some of the scores and you see the upsets. Has that made a huge difference across all of college football?
I mean, it's definitely made a difference. I think again, our level, we're not immune to the transfer portal and different stuff, but it doesn't have like huge impacts on our programs, I don't believe, either going out or coming in, just the way our schools are set up and, with the academics and the curriculums and whatnot. So, that part is I say we kind of carved out what's pure about college football, is we recruit, retain, develop, and graduate. And so I think there's something special about that. Outside looking in at the Power 5 or Power 4 and, those upper echelon FBS teams, I think it's, there's a lot of layers to it. And I think you could, you add money into situations and whether it's in the recruiting process or in retention process or in the transfer portal process, it adds a unique layer that I think the coaches are probably still figuring out, and the players look at it more, could look at it more transactional. And I think there is still out there the pride of playing for your university and winning for your team and your community. I do believe that. You see some elements where it's easier for kids to jump around because it's a better situation for them. And maybe, they have where they're coming from in their life. This is a financial opportunity that's a game changer. It changes the trajectory of families. So there's that part of it is definitely unique. And I think you look at, obviously, the Bama Vandy deal, any given Saturday, that's still what's special about college football. And then even you look at that group of 5, like there's some MAC teams out there this year that are, having some good performances against some Power 5. So, there is NLI stuff at different levels. Obviously, the amount of zeros depend on what program you're at. But and then completely outside looking in, I don't follow or read up on a lot of it. You just see some headlines, and you look at Clemson and Dabo Swinney has talked about how he's trying to build a program there, and
Yep.
What's the end result of that going to be? Is it is that the is he kind of keeping the head down through all the chaos and coming out at the end of it's going to be the strong, stable program and whatnot. But I don't know the ins and outs of any of that. Just more of just observations from from afar, but it's it's intriguing. It's good talking points for ESPN, for fans and stuff like that. And there is some there's I think everyone could agree there's validity to the fact that these schools that are big businesses and players are out there, and there's going to be some form of that compensation and deserving of it. And then there's the other part of it, the purity of college football part that the fans love. So I don't think, the sport's going to continue to grow and gain in popularity. And you get 100,000, I don't know how many stadiums had 100,000 fans in it last weekend, but there's enough across the country and to show that the game's not going anywhere. It's just maybe more intriguing now that it's ever have been.
Coach, last thing I got for you, what's a bye week look like for you this week? I know you mentioned before we came on you'll be out recruiting a few days, but what's on the agenda this week?
Yeah, so we'll do a couple early week practices, and then the coaches will head out and do some recruiting on the road. Some evaluation standpoint there, and then while we're out, the players we'll still have some lifts and whatnot that they're going to do, but but they'll get to, do their taking care of their bodies in the weight room, in the training room, but also, kind of, like I said, hitting that. And it's a midway point in the semester too. So there's midterms and different stuff that, guys could, not get ahead of, but more so of, dedicate a little more time to than they normally would have. And then when we come back, it's actually fall break here. So Monday and Tuesday, there's no classes. So, our structure for the day is a little less hectic for the guys too, because, they just got football during the day. So having that, real, it's a true, physical reset. The mental reset's going to come from, what happened the first 6 to what we want to happen the next 6 games. And, so that's something they'll definitely be intentional about too.
Well, Coach, enjoy the bye week, and best of luck to you against Georgetown, and we'll do it again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
You got it, Coach. Thank you.
Take care.
So that was Coach Stan Dakosty, the Colgate head football coach, joining me for episode number 3 of the Coaches Show. Coach is on a bye week this week, and when they come back, they will get a chance, and they will play Georgetown. So best of luck to Coach. Again, I want to thank the sponsors for today's show: the MedSpot Aesthetics, Wellness, and Weight Loss on 110 West Thomas Street in Rome. Special thanks to Corey Corbin. And then Waterman's Martial Arts, providing karate, sword, and self-defense to our Hamilton and Sherrill communities. Check them out at wmacny.com. Special thanks to Sensei Waterman and Sensei Conway. So on behalf of the Rock Pile, as I always say, the Rock Pile is where dreams become